Okay, for this demo about the guide 2 of web engineering 2, we created a simple web application using Jakarta, the version of the Java Enterprise Edition, and only with servlets and JSP pages. Well, behind this controller and web pages, we have persistence modules with an entities, but no, we don't use JPA or other ORM framework. Is a pure Pojo with simple fields that represent our table, a table person with an ID. We use the DVM as Postgres. For that reason, our primary keys don't have any keyword that represent an auto generate field, because the serial a field type is an integer field for databases with a sequence, for example, to simulate the auto increment or in MySQL, or the identity on SQL Server from Microsoft. Other fields is the name, the document, and a variable called state. For the use case that delete the users, we don't delete physically this row or this record from the database, only deactivate this record, change it the state field with an update, move the value of this state field from 1 to 0. That the number 1 represents when the person in our database is active, and the value 0 is when the record of the people is deactivated. So we need a database connection for access at the Postgres Postgres schema. I need to make the pause because we don't use the conventional connection system with JDBC. We're thinking that, we use as application server. Also, we need to use the features of this application server. For example, the data sources. To create the data sources in our Tomcat application server, servlet container, basically, we need to define in the section of the web app one XML file called context in our meta folder. In this file, we need to define an resource for the server with a specific name. We put it the name of JDBC because this resource represents a connection with a database with the JDBC protocol. An authorization type, for example, we have Tomcat is a servlet container. For that reason, the auto type is container. The type of the resource on data source from the package javax.sql. We need to to relate the driver of the database for the use when with the JDBC protocol, the connection URL, the info of the username, password, max of the connection in our data source. It looks like a pool connections, max time of idle, and the max waiting time in milliseconds. We use -1 because this time this number specify that no have waiting time. This resource we need to be related in our web folder. Web file into webbing folder with the tag resource reference. We need to put it a descriptions, a resource reference name, resource type, and resource authority. Okay, with this configuration, we can use the data source into Java code in the persistence layer. This connection is used by the DAOs, the AOEs, but our DAO extend from a CRUD class. This CRUD class contains the basic work to manipulate our records into the database table. In our case, the person table. Other thing about our connection is this. If you see, in this line, our connection don't make auto commits when one sentence is dispatched at the database. Okay, that feature permits use the ACID principle of the transactions. I know, and you know, this example no need transaction, but is a how I need to see that. It's an habit for me. Used connections and driver for transactions. Well, continue. The CRUD and the DAO is consumed for a service classes into the applications layer, the business logic layer, based on generic classes. Use generics. For example, we have a generic service. This class contains fields as a connection, or a generic DAO, and commit field, but is not needed. In fact, it's not used. We have a save method, edit method, find all records in a table. Into this method, return a list of a specific type, and find record by ID. Okay, this class permit segregate these classes and use this generic service as a bridge to make more scalable our code. Well, for the controller, we use a servlet. One servlet, call it person servlet, and our servlet use one constant class to define our URL patterns. We try to evite to not use hard-coded code into our methods. For example, the eRoot class contains other inner class called person, and this class contains a few constants that represents a specific URL of this application. For example, the constant list represents the call, a call from the servlet person, and the resource list save the resource save, edit to edit, search to search, delete to delete, and other constant that represents JSP pages. Okay? Our person servlet contain a method called process request. That method receive two params, two arguments, the request and the response from the servlet, and make the next logic sequence. Exist defined connections, a service contains a try catch finally statement in our try block. Launch the connection from the database and construct our service. Send the connection as an argument from the person service. Below this line, we create. This is a new feature from the Java 14, 15, and 16 version. It's called a switch expression. It's a few different at the classic switch. But, for example, the switch can return a variable and use arrow functions, look like a lambda, to represent the logic that is dispatched, that is thrown when a specific case is evaluated. For example, when the servlet path, the path invoke into our JSP files, JSP page, is equals to the value of the constant list into the inner class person in our enum route. Well, route isn't enum, is a immutable class with immutable inner class with immutable variables, constants. Well, what our servlet path is equals to the value of list, the servlet launch or invoke the list people method. This method exists below of the process request method, and basically launch the find all method of this service layer and set an attribute for the next redirection from our servlet. And finally return the path for the redirection. In our case, the list page. This constant, this return, is stored in the string path into our process request method after the store this variable we launch the instruction of commit. This is for the cases of this save logic and edit and delete methods. And finally, our process request method launch the request dispatcher for a specific path, is our redirection, and forward the request with our new values and the response object. We have a catch method with a stack trace printed of our console into the web server for 3 specific exceptions: a custom exception from the MVC project, IO exception for the calls of the request and response object, and also a servlet exception for the exceptions controlled by the servlet. Exists other method, the save person with the respective logic. Let me make a little line breaks for this constructor to make better the read of the code. These 2 lines represents values for our JSP page. For example, alert message is only the representation for a message at the final user to say it that the person is saved, and the alert type is only a word to change a CSS class in our JSP file. The edit person works basically equals to the save person. The only change is the parameter of the state. We receive the value of the state from a checkbox, a HTML checkbox, but the rest of the logic is the same. And finally, the delete person. Only the logic in this field is only change the state of an existent record consulted queried for the database by ID. We launch the edit method to the data layer and generate the same attributes, the alert message and the alert type. Okay. We launch the demo in our Chrome browser, and for example, this is the index page. You could see it in the web app folder. This is our HTML. Only have a division with the title and the button to the redirect at the list logic from the servlet. When make click off in this button, for example, we have one record called Marcos Marín editado de nuevo. We need to create a new person. Use it the button at the top of the table. We use Bootstrap to create a little design for the web pages. We create a new person called Gerardo Morales, and set a document number like that. We can clean the form with this button with the name limpiar. basically reset or clean the form, or make click in the cancel button to return on our home view, if you want to call. We move again to register person. Again, Gerardo Morales. Epa. With this document field value. And launch the register. And this. A new person has been registered. And you could see the record in our table. We can launch an edition. Oh, the detail continue with registers. I need to change it to edit person. We put it Gerardo Morales editado. Edit, button click, and the name of this record was modified, and other alert is showed by the user for the user. And now, to complete this demo, I launch the delete sequence in our web page. I may click to delete button and redirect to a confirm page. You're sure to delete this person? Yeah, I'm sure. I delete the person, and Marine is deleted. And that is all. A simple CRUD with a lot of architecture. Thanks for all, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. Goodbye.